A gracious good morning or good evening, whatever time it is, if you're watching this live stream later on YouTube. We're streaming today with Kev. Thank you. And I will, as we edit this, we'll also get some questions from our classes if we have them as we redo this edit. So if you're probably hello to all of our future selves who are watching this on YouTube, if that's where you're watching it. I'm getting into test taking in microeconomics and some basic test taking strategies. And we've edited several different sessions together for this one to show, what is test taking all about. So, as you know, I tutor over 1,000 students a year in addition to teaching numerous classes at Harvard, Grand Canyon University, Purdue, Nerdy, enterprise tutor, varsity. They all have classes at various other universities, and I'm an adjunct at many of those too. So this is like a private tutoring session that you can learn from in terms of taking the tests and learning how to take tests in micro, where you only have 2 minutes to answer, and yet the math looks like it's a 10-minute math. So there's lots of tricks and keywords and secrets in that, and we'll be seeing that as we proceed. So without further ado, let me jump onto our whiteboard. It did good. All right, saves us time. I just want to backtrack one. As I was editing the video, I had to jump into this session, but I was looking back at some of the questions you had as we analyzed what is the best, the test taking versus the actually having to do a lot of math. So I just wanted to step back through this the way they asked it and look at the keywords again and seeing, if there's where we have to calculate and where we can just see the answer and they're just looking for something that you can read off of the graph. And that's a really important strategy to say what can be read directly and what kind of hints do the questions give us compared to, what do we have to calculate. And this is really, I've also looked back over all the rest of what you sent in the chapters, and I don't think we're going to have to do PED. I don't think price elasticity of demand is going to be on it, although I have a lot of materials to cover with you on it. I don't want to focus on something that's not going to be on the test
Yeah,
right now.
no, I understand that.
But there are a lot of things in PED also that are you have to quickly decide. Do I have to do a bunch of calculations? And some of these questions that you'll see where they're asking for elasticity even, they'll say, well, there's an increase in income and it's $10 more, and it used to be somewhat elastic, but what happened after this income came, and then what happens at this point, and it'll be a story problem instead of a graph. And it'll talk about, Linda X got this raise, will she do this or that? And how is her price elasticity? That's just what that is, the calculation side of that. And we get some of these with equilibrium also, which is more has to do with the is it one less than one and greater than one? You just calculate the ratio. If it's a 10% raise, then you say, okay, that's 0.37, so it's under one, so it's inelastic or whatever. So that you get the choice that way with the calculation, or it shows on the graph that they show you where it's where the slope is and where the points of equilibrium are and that kind of stuff, then you can read it off the graph. So last time we looked at this, we said, well, we know it's got to be, the tax revenue's got to be 270 or 135, and their after-tax price has got to be 85 cents or 115. We can see that point C has got an 85, so there's a hint there. But then you have to say, what is A, B, and C? So the big keywords are suppose the government imposes a tax on gasoline producers or suppliers. Supply one and that represent, and 0 and 1 represent the curves before and after. So we need to, we need to know the before and after in the direction because we need to, figure out with the shift what's happening to consume the overall supply or the overall demand, not just at any given movement of the price or quantity. So this is our before and this is our after. And the initial step in solving this is what is the before and after that is given in the keywords, and they're telling us this is our before and this is our after, and this little arrow helps us, thank you, for saying, okay, this is the effect the tax had, which is shifting all prices at all quantities
Yep.
up and to the left. So and in practical accounting terms, since we don't want to forget
Mm.
in any of these, that this is price and this is quantity.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we
No,
got to
no,
kind of
yeah, I got it. I was like the tax means the your supply goes down, or
right.
you have less supply.
Yes, yes, yeah. So you're shifting to less, and it's less, and the reason for that is that on an accounting side, since price times quantity equals revenue, and not every problem like this we're going to have to care about, but when you read in the problem like this reads that there's accounting involved, it's like, yeah, what is the total tax revenue? Okay, they're asking an accounting question, not a just an economic question. So we know there's a price times quantity going on here. So then the after-tax price that suppliers get. So the logic of the question is that you've got you've got B here, and the consumer paid something at a certain price. And when it shifts, it's all prices and all quantities. It's a shift in the entire supplier demand. And then the points of equilibrium change because since supply is changing, demand equilibrium, which says this is the optimal that you're going to optimal quantity and price you're going to be at is going to reflect reflected in your profit and your quantity and all that kind of stuff. So there's accounting involved when they ask what's the revenue and then what is the after tax price that they get. So before you don't have the tax, right? So
Mhm.
the consumer pays a dollar and the supplier or producer gets a dollar. It's that simple
Yeah,
because there's no tax. You add a tax and something happens accounting wise, price times quantity. Some of this goes away. You've got three of us now. You've got the buyer or the demand, you've got the supplier here, and who you got sticking here in the middle? The government. So, there's a third person, a third entity here. So all of a sudden, tax becomes really important. And this little clue says this is your gap and this is your difference, which starts to show us why C is really also important. So the other part of this in terms of test taking is like we did last time is we said the answer's got to be 85 cents or $1.15 on one part of it, and it's got to be 270 or 135. So there's a calculation and the secret sauce, which we got to last time, but I'm going to emphasize a little difference, is that at point C, we can look at what we know the new demand is 900 gallons and read right off what the price is going to be. So the second part of the answer is a read off, gimme, got it. So we know it's got to be B or D. And again, I'm hoping it is one of those. I lost my answer key in the beginning and it wasn't buried in email. So I'm depending on Kev. Tell me if it's right or not, right or wrong. But we got B and D here. So what are we doing with this? We're saying A is not 85 and C is not 85. They're using $1.15. So that's just seeing, that's all that's doing is seeing, okay, we know it went from A to B and we know this is the old this is an equilibrium question. So they're saying how much money goes to the government and then what is the end amount you receive as a supplier now that this has changed because it's going to be different at B than it was at A. So the C on the curve says, okay, this is easy because we can read from B, we can see it's 900 gallons, and that's going to be
yeah,
our understanding, right? And then from C, we can read over and say, okay, we know the 85 because that those align, and we don't really care about the old except that how much was the tax itself? Well, the tax per unit, and what this gets into is in text test taking, is that it gets into what we call dimensioning. And it's not, I don't want to get into a big thing about it, but all it is that when you have a question of one unit, and by a unit, I don't mean the marginal unit, which is gallons or dollars, but I mean that if it's one unit in one dimension, you can read it off the graph. And this is really important to know. If it's just one unit and it's one dimension, the meaning it's one dimension, then if they're asking for quantity price, you can read it off the graph. So we know part of the answer here is going to be B or D because it's asking about a unit price here. It's not asking for miles per gallon, minute miles, gallons for whatever. And yet we do have to know tax per unit, which is two dimensions. So there's a part of this that's calculated of this problem, which is tax per unit. So when you look at what are they asking for in the question, you got to, and this is true of like at least of the 40 we're looking at least 15, 10 to 15 of them are confusing about unit versus tax per unit. Is it a price? Move it along the price, or is it a ratio? And this is for every one of these questions, even the story questions. You got to first ask which one of these are individual units and which are a compound unit like miles per gallon, or in this case, it's tax per unit, but it's tax per unit of revenue. So we know the revenue is what's the revenue? We've got the revenue was given to us. Revenue is one dimension. We can read the revenue off. The revenue at the new point of equilibrium, which is B, is 900. So we've got the answer to the revenue by just reading it off without doing any calculation. And this is, again, the test taking strategy of what can I just read directly off to quickly. And the bottom line of this in TT and test taking, that part of our studies, is that how can we go faster than doing a whole bunch of math and all this and getting confused and all this is up,
Hmm.
that's up, this is down, and take 10 minutes trying to just comprehend the problem when it's much simpler to say, okay, we know that if we have to know the tax per unit of revenue because they're asking for that in the question, it's like all they're saying is what is the after-tax price that suppliers get? Well, that's the difference of the government. What is the tax, and how is that? What the tax is central to this. Then it's like you got to know the tax per gallon. If you don't know
Yeah.
the tax per gallon, how are you going to know how much money you get after? So when you look at the new three people that are, and this isn't true of every one of these prices, floors, governments questions are you got to find a ratio and we got to read some part off. So there's a little bit of math and there's a little bit of reading right off. Well, this is a real good gimme because that's 85. That eliminated two of these. 900 is a really good gimme, but you can't figure out okay, is this going to be 270 or 135? Because you can get either of these kind of numbers and you won't get either one unless you actually figure out what is your tax per unit of revenue. And that's where we got down to saying, well, if you look at the what is the price at B, and then that's where you can say, I know how important A and B is, but why would C be important? Well, right away you can see C is important because that's where you read off your your new quantity. That's where your 900 comes from, right? So, and that's also where you can read point C is suddenly where you can also see where your 85 cents is based on the new equilibrium, which is B here, because you're reading this down here. So then the question becomes, if those two are, where do you find out multiplying what by 900, which we know we could just read off, is going to be your actual tax per unit. So the way that works then is you say how much of that is going to be after the tax per gallon compared to before. So what the producer, your supplier, is getting is that some of this has got money, this amount of money here has got to go to the government. So you're saying for the consumer, they're paying the tax for you. So the price has got to go up, and there's got to be a new equilibrium for the whole thing when they impose the tax. So there's your higher prices for that. But then what's going to happen to your demand when the price goes up? You're on a downward slope. It's going to go down. Oh, it did from 100 from 1,000 to 900. So you're seeing that is giving you that. But the what is the price in the new shift at B? Um, what is the new price? And you just go, well, the new price is $1.15, right?
Hmm.
So I can see that because I can read it off a B. But then you're saying, well, what happens with the shift in terms what are the tax effectives? And here's the clue. The clue is telling us we got to look at C because they're saying it moved from here to here. So it went from here to here. So what's $1.15 minus 85? And that's where you get your 30 cents. So that is where you get a ratio. And this is the same in tables and it's the same in charts that when you see a gap, and they get many of the questions are like this, they'll draw a square in, a squared in sort of a gray area square and say, where is the consumer surplus or where is the loss or where is the government, where are you walking away from money, all this other stuff. Well, that's where you start to get the linear side of this of saying there's a difference here because this tax went up here. So what's the difference from here to here? And that's why C becomes important. So then it just becomes, 30 cents times 900 and you got the 270 right away. So you got the answer to your problem. And you've got that second 270 you weren't sure of. But the logic of seeing looking at the three equilibrium points and why do they, it's easy to see why A and B are important because and A itself is not even that important because it's gone. It's we're looking at the new situation and they're looking at the delta, the change. And this is the same as elasticity. Any kind of equilibrium you have that's different, it's like what's the gap between there and there. So, but the thing that's important for this and many other problems is asking yourself, what can I read off and what do I have to do a little math on? And it's not a lot of math to subtract this from this, but you don't necessarily think that until you get around to the logic of looking like what I'm really looking for in this question is it's saying, it's like an algebra problem. We're saying um, that is where it says the after-tax price is different from the after-tax price that suppliers get. Well, yeah, because the government's in there now. And so once you see that there's someone else grabbing at the money here, the government, there's not just two of us, in the before and the after, then they're just saying, what do you have to, what do you have to get? What money do you make? What's your profit? And profit is looming behind all this kind of stuff when you have equilibrium points because it's the maximum, the best supply for demand. That's where your equilibrium point is. So there's many of these questions they can have that's basically the same answer. You ask, this is a before and after. It's like me when I was in high school, me in college, and you put on social media your prettiest picture. It's like what happens, in this shift to make A, B, and C very important. And C can
Yeah.
be ignored, but once you see it down here and you're asking, when you see that you have to have the price per unit. And that's another thing with these fractions, whether it's the float, whether it's price moving up and down or shifting for our 10 factors that shift it, all those other things, is that it's always going to end up being a ratio because it's a slope. So you're saying, what's the ratio here? And it almost always ends up being a subtraction. It's either the one we've talked about a million times, which is, new minus old over old, or change in P over change in Q, percent change in price versus quantity, new minus old or in this case, just subtracting the the new new minus the old. So what is the new? What is the new? The new is Huh. The new is reading from B, which would be about 15. The old is 85, reading off the other supply of the supply curve, not the demand curve. Don't forget the demand is different because we're looking at less demand. We already see that in terms of supply and price, what's happening. It's it's dropping and more of the money is going to the government. So it's just, A minus B, which is giving you the 30 cents. So that's the looming secret math in this is the 30 cents. And it takes a little more thinking. And last time when we discussed it, we weren't reading C as much because we're so looking at A versus B. I just want to make sure we didn't miss the fact that there's a shortcut where we can see it with test taken and see the 85 cents there and say, hey, okay, I got it. I can grab the answer in one more second. Or you can take another minute and check your work and say, okay, this went from here to here, and that is the 30 cents multiplied by out, which gives you this 270 gallons. So either way, one of it you could read off the 85, the other you have to do a little calculation, but you can do the test taking, get it right away, or you can spend a little more time and see what was the math behind it. But once you do several of these, you're going to see the same pattern in every question that what kind of question is this? Is a before and after? What are the keywords that were given? And what is the main information that they're given? That last thing, just this hint is worthless. I mean, you have to think another 3 minutes to what the hell are they saying? And all they're really saying with the hint is that yeah, you have to give some of your monies to the government, and there's going to be a difference there. And it's like, well, what is the difference? They already gave you the ad. This is the hint. Is this arrow? There's a tax, so you got to get rid of that tax effect from here to here, which is from here to here. So, that's just another way of saying how the dimension affects the math and where do I have to do math and where don't I have to do math, which saves you, 2 or 3 minutes for every question, which without any more pausing, let's jump up to, that was what, 21. Let's jump up to 22 here, get us a new board and just keep on.
I think we did 22 yesterday.
Oh, did we? What
Yeah.
was 22? 22 was Oh, rightward versus possible explanation for the, oh, it's a shift. Yeah. Yeah, oh, that was just a easy question. Okay,
Yeah.
so the
So
20s.
number 23, the competitive market.
Oh, 23 is a table. That's fun. Let's do a table. Let me jump up here. 23. All right, let's go up to 23. Oh, yeah, I see 20.
Ooh,
Let's see, where's 23? There's 23. Oh, yeah, this is fun. This actually has some of those same principles. So let's jump up, grab 23 here. And where are we going? Let's get back to a new page here. Oh, where's my page? Let's go to my pages. I got to open that up. Open up pages, add a page, get back to this, and we go Control V. Let's get this in here. Let's move it so Kev can see it. Get this down a little bit bigger so we can get the white markup on it. Go to our pens.
is it for this? Are you finding the equilibrium?
For 23.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Well, yeah, they're saying that. Well, it's saying use the following table to answer the question below, and this is one of those cause effect ones where they're saying, okay, what are these? Where is the price going to settle down at? Which is what what did you how did you just ask that? You did it so brilliantly. I don't want to lose it. Is this an equilibrium problem? Is that what you asked?
Yeah, because I
Yes.
remember
Yes.
in our one of our quizzes we did in the
Yes.
sanitation, we did I had remember a problem similar to this, and we had the
Brilliant.
we had to
Yeah.
find a equilibrium.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
just
Yep.
off the bat, I mean, I don't want to say the answer yet unless you want to explain it. I mean, I think B, to be honest.
Let me see. All right. Let's see. So what we've got is use the following table answer question. We've got 15 and 2200 units. We got 20. We got a price and we got units. So that's a price and quantity. So we're looking at kind of a movement about the price that would give you. So we're visualizing it immediately our axes, and we're thinking that there's going to be a change in quantity demanded and supplied per year versus price. So this is it's an equilibrium problem. So you got our downward sloping demand, and we've got this upward sloping kind of thing. And so I guess the first question we would ask before looking at the answers would be, do you think this is a shift problem, or do you think this is a movement along the lines problem?
Movement along the lines.
Right, exactly. So and what you found right away is that when it's the question that's being asked with these answers as the cause for the effect is that they're going to settle at, which is equilibrium, which is, so we know it's an equilibrium
Yeah.
problem right away. So we're saying at we're going to have to ask, is there a shortage or a surplus? And that's other ones. When we do this, there's going to be little squares of there's a shortage here, a surplus here. But we got to kind of look at right away. It is like, is where are the places where supply and demand are at equilibrium? So the first thing we look at is this thing down here, or say this is where LIG. We want to see where for the suppliers we always want to look at LIG, which is life is good. Okay, life is good here because we don't this is our demand and this is our what we produce, and if this is zero, there's no gap here, we're loving it. There's equilibrium. Our equilibrium choice is we're making what is needed, demanded by demand. Supply and demand are the same. Yay, life is good. So we know that somehow $25 here is an important thing. This is test taking. Okay, this isn't doing any math, any calculation, any playing games. It's TT all over. And that's just by saying, if number one, Kev figured out, this is an equilibrium problem. So number two, you'd say, are there any equilibriums in all this stuff? And all of a sudden you notice like, holy crap, I have an inventory supply buildup here. This is in our sim. I got 1,000 demanded and I got 1,500. I've got excess inventory here, don't I? And then you look
Yep.
down here and you go, I can sell 1,600. I can only make 600. Or look at here. I can sell 2,000 and I can't even make one. What is the loss going to be, on that, the profit? So when you're at zero versus supply or demand, on an accounting side, loss over inventory, you're at equilibrium and life is good. So this is the answer to 20 of these problems, which is instead of doing all this stuff, calculating and doing all that stuff, let's start by seeing where life is good, if it's anywhere. Well, we just thought on every problem we had, they're showing us life is good. What do we just see? A, B, and C, right? A, B, and C. Okay, every one of those places we got to go with in competitive markets. Where is our equilibrium? Where is life good? If it's old and we used to love it and now it's here, let's find a new life, a blue ocean because it's good. Well, I already know that life is good here. You're doing great at 1,200 and 1,200 without even doing any math. But if you want to start doing this kind of stuff and figure it out, by the way, if we know the price per unit, could we answer the problem right away? Now, if I say this and I'm wrong, I'm going to feel like an ass, but what if I just said, let me guess C? I haven't done the math and I haven't done this for a while, but what if I just guess that? You got the answers, right? If you tell me I'm wrong, I'll have to backtrack, but
For 23.
yeah. See that
Yeah.
now it is?
Yeah.
Is it? Okay, see,
Yeah. For C.
my head was going to be if you said no, I was going to say, well, we maybe double check with units. But the reason right away is if you see that it's going to be
Okay.
25 from where it is, and that's the only answer, then you can be 80% confident, let's say, never 100%. And I'm not recommending that once you jump on this, do this. It depends on how much how many of these you do. And I do 1,000 these a day. So it's just like, yeah, it's 99%. That's going to be C. But it would be good to also do the math and figure out. But this is where I was saying you can read the gap, get the answer sometimes by knowing what to look for. And the first thing you always look for, it's step two in the equilibrium, the insight you had when they said settle at, actually it's step three because they gave us the hint by asking where it's going to settle at. And so this would be one, this would be two, and this would be three. But one is where will it settle at? Oh, it's an equilibrium problem. And so there's going to be surplus. They're not asking about surplus here, but when it's equilibrium, there's going to be something left behind. There's going to be some, dead weight loss if it's a government thing. And there'd be dead weight loss on the last question. You just didn't ask for it. But in those squares, we could find a dead weight loss, or we could find a surplus, or we can have excess inventory or shortage. And what is a surplus and a shortage? And in this question, you're going to see four other questions. Um, when you say what is a surplus in economics, in microeconomics, is curves and gray areas and all that stuff. In everyday accounting, it is excess. I don't want to write all this out, but it's excess inventory. So surplus is you're building inventory. You're up on the inventory build side of the curve with the sim. And what is shortage? How do you define shortage when they want 2,000 and you can supply zero? You look at supply and demand. So these are the underlying things for lost orders versus inventory, which is this kind of stuff in accounting and running a business. And everyone says, yeah, we hire an economist and he sits in a corner and he's got dark thoughts. He doesn't have anything to do with the decisions because we use metrics. What people don't get is they're using the same metrics.
Yeah.
They just are not taking, if you're great at accounting, you can be great at microeconomics and vice versa, because once you
Yeah.
can think like, I don't want to
Yeah.
lose money, I want to profit. And that's how you think. Because many times you've said to me, I wouldn't do that because I can see I'm not going to make money at that. Well, that's the same thing with all the cost benefit questions. Where are they equal? So all we did here is it pointed us to that. But surplus versus shortage, which we're going to get a lot of those in deadweight loss under the government questions later on towards 39 and 40. Those are just the same as saying, where do I have excess inventory or where do I have loss orders? Because I'm not meeting here at zero where my supply equals demand. And that's where, when you run these simulations and you run a business, it ties directly 100% to EBIT. So profit and your earnings before and taxes without the government effects is directly tied to surplus and shortage and lost orders over inventory, the buildup of inventory. So again, that now let's see. Well, we may as well do the math side of this. Let's see where we have what would the shortage be? So we're having how many units are there? Well, below 1,200 and 1,000. Let's see. What did they say that it went up to? Oh, you know what? This is really this is really silly because to find these, you're just looking at the other ones that you know can't be the answer, and then you're looking at where it is and doing a little math. So you're just eliminating the other three because this is the causal side. This is again test taking, but just to not get blinded by a ton of numbers, just to say, okay, say where are the price, where are you going to have your equilibrium point? And at 15 and 2,200 units, um, you can say at $15 here, and then what if this was at 2,200 units? Because you're finding the price per unit, and then multiplying the units out and doing the math. You would say, you know, there's a shortage of 1,000 units there. So all they're really doing here, they're working backwards into the answer by saying when you look at 15 and you see 1,600, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, what is it, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, is that 600? So anyway, I don't have my calculators in my brain is a little fogged, but basically it's just saying is there's a shortage at 15 from the quantity demanded, which is what, 1,600. So that'd be 600 units, right? So you
Hmm.
have a 600 unit shortage. So it can't be an equilibrium. So what they're going to make us go through to look for this second thing is trying to find out one,
Wait. Oh, wait. I'm
1,200
sorry.
equals
I'm
1,200, right?
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. How did you get 600 again? Or did you just see the quantity supplied per year?
No, well, yeah. What I did is they're saying the well, where will the equilibrium hit at $15? You read across $15 and get 1,600, right?
Yeah.
So that's the quantity demanded. So you're saying the quantity demanded is 1,600 units, and what is the quantity supplied?
Oh, 600.
Yeah, yeah. So where is
Oh, I
this
see.
buried? I got my phone is buried somewhere here. So all they're doing is what we did anyway, is saying where does supply and demand end, and do the math and calculate it and say does it, well, let me turn off this phone. I'm sorry. Oh, who's calling?
No,
Um,
you're good. You're good.
Sorry about that. I leave this on only for you in case you text before. But anyway, so yeah, so at every stage you can sit there and say, where is the shortage? And it's worth of which is worth doing, seeing what the shortages are. Where when I mentioned 1,000 units, it's worth looking at what is the shortage to not for this problem because obviously the answer was obvious right in the beginning, and it's obvious that if you're going to be what we did went through already, but to say why would I even look further to say that it's 1,000 because later on you have questions just like this that say look at this area, what's the shortage? And so I'm just giving us another tool here to say they're not asking this and they're not getting into surpluses because of the government, all that, but it's a good to kind of look at was there a surplus or a shortage here, and all that is there excess inventory or is there a lost orders? So they just call them different things in economics than they do in accounting, but that's the other way to look at these other areas and see the pretty simple answer that this is where it's balanced off at 12 and 12. So it's again, this is probably the reason I like this problem is like it's probably the biggest difference in terms of test taking versus math strategy. There's three different types. There's test taking where you read you've got 2 minutes to do the question on the timing, and it takes 10 seconds because you see instantly where it is. There's another where there's a middle one where you got to do a little math, but you can read half of it off the graph. And then there's a longer question that takes the full 2 minutes because you got to do all the math on it. And there's not too many of those. Out of 40, I think there was like five. So you could still do kind of okay on it if you didn't have to do all the math, but most of them are like this. But this is the easiest of all when you see that you figured out the 25 because the two 1200s were equilibrium. And
Hmm.
what solved the problem was you did, the keyword. When you found out what type of problem is, it's taxonomy. What is the type of problem this is? And that's the first hardest thing that people have to figure out. And if you miss the type, if you miss what type of question it is, then you're learning from the school of hard knocks, which is what ready, fire, aim, not ready, aim, fire, trial and error. I've done 10 of these. I did ready, aim, fire. Now I finally figured out this was an equilibrium problem. That's a hard way to learn. A good way to learn is to say right away, this settle at is a keyword that's telling me that's an equilibrium problem. And you got it better than I did. I mean, I knew it was an equilibrium problem just looking at these numbers, kind of saying, where do they match? But that's intuitive about some other area. You said, hey, I took a few tests and I'm recognizing that this is showing equilibria here. It's like, yeah, it is an equilibrium problem. Well, that's once we know that that's the type of problem, we know where to focus our math and everything, which is on how balanced are supply and demand once it's that type of problem. And it might have another question to it. If I was making this problem, I might say, where is the biggest surplus and the biggest shortage? Then it's like, well, it's at $5 and it's at $30. It would be an easy question, but I'm still saying there's a lot of other things you can throw into this, and it's the same exact problem. Once you see it's an equilibrium, then you got to say, where is the equilibrium? And if this was a graph like our last one was, same thing. You're like, oh, this is an equilibrium problem too. So it's like, let me see, I got to figure if I know how to do this. Where are we? Uh, what is that? Oh no, my phone is talking to me. I think AI went on. But anyway, so yeah, where are we back here? Where are we back to page here? Um, oh well, I won't deal with that. We don't have time for that. I was going to kind of relate this to the last one, but we don't really have to remember that it's the same
Sure.
basic idea where the three equivalent imprints. Okay, where are we at? 24. Let's keep on
24.
chugging along here. 223 is 24, just one of those.
Just
Yeah.
what is the equilibrium price and quantity in this market?
Oh, is it? So let me see. 24. Oh, we do have a graph though. Let's see. All right, let's
Is
go
it
to page 3. Oops, let me
is it
go.
A?
Let me see.
So it seems that seems pretty simple. I mean, unless there's a lot more to it.
Let me see what they are. A is 7 and 70. Oh, it's just, well, yeah, this is just
Yeah,
asking for an intersection, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
easy.
that's literally A. I just looked it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, that's easy. Yeah, no, it's just saying where is 7 and 70, and 7 and 70 is where they intersect. Yeah, exactly. Good.
Okay,
Took care of
perfect.
that one.
Number
And
25.
that's another example of not having to read anything. It's kind of like, okay, where's the equilibrium? That's the equilibrium where the two intersect. Somebody might get stung on that by saying, I didn't
Can
look
I
at.
can I have just like 40 of those problems for the
Yeah,
exam?
please. I want 42. Yeah, let's just do more of those. It's like,
Just what is equilibrium?
I
I'll
know.
do well.
Well, there's a lot of equilibrium problems. There are, and they're all somewhat that similar. It's just we have to get by a couple of things. When we get up to like 27 and there's four graphs, that's a little different. So, okay, let's see. Where's 25? I have got to turn this on. Is this thing? Figure this out. I'm gonna have to
As
turn
a
this.
price of
All right, let me go. We're on 25. Is that fill in the blanks? Let me
yeah,
see.
just fill in the blanks.
Oh, fill in the blanks. Okay, let me put that in there. Let's go 25. We are 20, 26. Where's 20? Whoops. It's going to keep jumping on me. Here we go. Control Shift S. Let's jump this down there so you can relook at it on the video if you need to tonight. All right, here we go. 25. Let's get to here. Yeah, this is whoops, another similar one to that you're going to also like. So let's see, Control V. Didn't I do that already? Yeah, okay. So yeah, this is just asking at price that, there is what that, at how many pounds, and what are is that what this is? Yeah. So it's saying that, I'm gonna have to turn this phone off. I'm gonna turn this phone off. It's constantly talking to me. All right, so all right, there. Let's see, we're at four shortage at 153, surplus at 250. So that's just supply and demand. It's like fill in the blanks below, and there's no other question. So it's like, let's see. Uh, Well, this is really easy too. This is the same thing, only it's the next step. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, this is just another equilibrium problem. Yeah. So what do? We go, yeah, remember what we did last time? We just
Um,
we just matched these two, right?
yeah.
So this is the same kind of thing. It's
Oh, so
saying,
it was so is it literally just like like the least amount?
yeah.
Okay, so would it be C?
Well, we'd be subtracting, we'd say,
Oh,
where is more demanded than is supplied? Where there's more demand than supply.
Is it the
Because
200?
remember, shortages and surpluses are
Yeah.
where are there more demanded than there are supplied. So we look at this and we say, first of all, let's look at demand and supply and see if there's a surplus or a shortage. So we say at $5, is there a surplus or a shortage? So we got 350. We've got a buildup of inventory, and so there's $250 of too much of surplus, right? So that that would have been not at $5 though. So that couldn't be that. So each one of these we could look at 4, 3, 2, and 1. They don't even ask about 5, do they? It's
No.
it's
Yeah,
just
they don't even ask about
they don't
five.
even ask about 5, so I just wasted 2 seconds. But so 4 is shortage of 150. Um, a shortage of 150. Well, it's you supply 300 and it demands 150, so you've got 150 surplus, right?
So if it demands
Yeah, that'd be
three.
that 200. Yeah, so what am I seeing? I'm saying, let's see. Um,
Oh, I see.
I'm
So
just saying it's just
at the
it's looking like D to me because if you look at a 150 versus 225, it's a shortage of 75. So that's just math. You know,
so
it's
so at the price of one, there is a shortage of 75 pounds.
right.
That, yeah, that is D.
Yeah, that'd be D.
How did you get there again? What did you see on the graph?
Yeah, yeah. See, this is actually the same thing we just talked about, which is that a shortage, if you think of it in accounting terms, you think well that way, and I do too. Shortage means there's you defined a shortage as lost orders, which means you have higher um, a shortage is higher um, demand than you have supply, lower supply, right? That's what a shortage is because if I'm demanding, you just look where does supply and demand not match? It's the same thing as last time. You're saying where's there a 175 and a 105? Where's equilibrium? Look, here's equilibrium. You have supplied and demanded, right? And everything above the equilibrium line is problematic, and everything below the line is problematic. So, if they're saying there's a surplus or shortage, there's only one answer here where it's problematic in terms of the price itself, and we don't even have to look at the price anymore at these prices of dollars. We just have to look at, where is demand higher than supply or whatever, or demand lower than supply so that there's a shortage. And we can see this is a huge shortage. This shortage is 250, 225 minus 150, right? Which is what?
Hmm.
75, right?
Oh, so you just do the least of, oh,
Yeah.
225 minus 150. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So,
That's
and
okay.
we just covered this in the last one. When you watch this video, you'll say, "Oh my gosh, we were psychic by accident." But it's just all the questions are the same. They're just a different.
Yeah, I just have tend to overthink the problem.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, believe me, I teach this stuff at Julia programming calculus levels. So I'm trying to think, where's the second intercept and the third derivative? It's like, no, they want you to do is subtract. And that's all these questions, they want you to either subtract or ratio. The math of all these things, sometimes you need 6 steps when you get towards 40. And it does get complicated, but it's all four function math. It's all you subtract and then you do a ratio, A over B, or you do a ratio and then you subtract. The math is all four function math. I mean, there's some multiplying, but not a lot. But the from the math side, it's not as complicated as price elasticity, where you have to do a change of a change. So it's a percent change in slope over that. There's only one problem that's geometry in this entire test. There might be three on the real one, but it's the base versus the base versus the height and the hypotenuse, and that's the answer, in terms of wanting to have half of it to get to the area. So there's one problem like that, but all the other ones are basically you just subtract 225 from 150.
Mm-hmm. Alrighty.
All right, let's jump up to another page
It's
here.
number 26 now.
6. All right, we're moving along. Let me get into my new page here. New page.
The government imposes a price ceiling on 20 in the
Oh boy,
market.
here we go. Price the government. Government's got to get in here. So what is this? This is 26. All right. Oh, it's another equilibrium problem. Man, this is so good to know these equilibrium problems. All right, let me get this graph up here.
Oh, 8?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you don't want to look at that, I'm looking
Oh,
at
wait, wait, let me
red
see,
and a
let me
blue
see.
line. We don't have to do that.
Oh, no, no. No.
All right, let me do that. Control, save. Uh, some of these we have to be careful not to overthink that if we have an instinct, there's one of two things that happen where we get A or B wrong, which is that we underthink it or overthink it. And it kind of like, is this an underthinking or an overthinking problem? And sometimes the question becomes, can I read this off the graph and see the answer, or do I have to do a little math? And that's where it's kind of telling you. All right, let me get this right here. Control V. Now we got a red and blue line. I got to move this so you can actually see it. Government, right? The government imposes pricing of 20 on the market graph below. Okay, let's find our ceiling first. I mean, you're not going to be drawn on this on the thing, but where's the ceiling? See, the ceiling's always got to be below equilibrium, right? There's the rule. All right, let's see. That's our ceiling. So they have a price ceiling of 20 on the market graph below. How much of the good would be produced by suppliers and sold to demanders? Well, then it's just okay. So you're saying you're looking for the amount that's supplied or demanded, and then all you make.
Oh, wait, 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 wait. Is that so do you have to shift demand below?
Equilibrium is at 8. This is equilibrium is at 8, and they're saying at an imposed price ceiling of 20 on the market graph below, how much the good would be produced by suppliers and sold to demanders. Okay, so how much of the quantity would be made with a price change? So if you have a price change um, and a quantity change, is that a shift or a movement?
You said if you had a price change and quantity change.
I said if you have a price change which also has a quantity change, are you moving up and down, or are you shifting demand or supply?
I assume you shift along the supply or move along the supply curve.
Well, that's exactly you just said you gave two different answers. You said you'd either shift or you'd move. And the answer is you'd move
Oh,
because at all prices, it doesn't change all
yeah,
quantities. There's no shift. It's all they're asking for is price versus
yeah.
quantity here. The
So I
only
kind of
reason
caught myself there.
Yeah. You know, I saw you did, but it doesn't have any of those factors of the 10 factors of consumer demand or supplier cost changes and all those other ones. It doesn't have any, it just says a simple here, price versus demand. What would be demanded at the price change here if they set a ceiling? So a government can shift. It actually can shift supply and demand, but it's much simpler here. They're just saying, what happens if you don't have to draw the new curve, shift it, or move along here, whatever, because they gave it to you, which you already said. They gave you this point here.
Yes.
And the answer is this point here.
Yeah, correct.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So
So,
it's
just in terms of
relatively,
the wording of the question, imposes price ceiling. Price ceiling means your move is going down, correct?
well, it means you cannot exceed a ceiling, you can't get above it. It's got to be below equilibrium, but you can't go above it. So they're saying
Oh,
you cannot charge more than $20 for this. So
okay.
this becomes the real world. Your equilibrium is, and so then you've got the deadweight losses and things like that in there. They're not asking that yet, but you will get to the thing of saying what's between here and here and show me the triangle that's a deadweight loss. And then you'll have to go, okay, I've got 30. I draw this from here. I've got this and I've got this. I know the base is, the base from here to here is 8, 0 to 8. The ceiling is here to here. And what's the area here? What's the dead weight loss? It would be like if this is 4 times, like let's just guess this is 8 times. Um, if that's 20, 8 times 20 would be 160, divided by 2 would be 80. So your dead weight loss would be 80. So you're going to be seeing this is a simpler problem just to say, can you read the graph? Obviously,
Yeah.
which you did right away. But it's complex in that they're not showing any shifts or any other government changes that change demand. But you will have one that looks simple like this, but they're asking for DWL and they'll show area 1, area 2, area 3. They're grayed out. And then you'll have to look at the triangle that is, what is the difference? Again, it's just subtraction because it's a difference. But if I have to subtract this from that, the area that you lose in, that you can't charge the equilibrium price in, is going to be a loss. And it's lost to all of society, where it's like a social loss. You lose jobs, you lose money, whatever. And that's why they're showing the saying in free market economies, when you start screwing around with things as a government, you're always going to have something left behind on the table. On a tax, it's left behind and the government keeps it.
Hmm.
Price ceilings or price floors, you can't go below this price. But it's like you just said, it's always an equilibrium problem. And we'll see this in
Yeah. No, no. So if I understand what I'm getting at here, and
yeah,
you correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah.
for price ceiling and price floor, any type of these problems, if it has a set equilibrium, it says okay, price ceiling, you basically don't want to look for anything above that, and if the next equilibrium below that is the answer.
Right. What the tricky part of this is that you're supposed to, and I won't get into all the math, but you're supposed to set any kinds of these government interventions below equilibrium because it's not an economic. If you set it above, what's the point? You can sell it on the free market without any help. So they try to set it below the equilibrium of the market to tamper with the market because they're at the most efficient. So it's inefficient. It's an efficiency question, which is when you'll get into all those economic terms about consumer efficiency, because it's very inefficient to impose a ceiling on something that's working well in a free market economy. But when do they do it? They do it if, for instance, some poor people are getting poorer and they can't make a living, or we got to redistribute wealth, or they have to change something in there where there's something wrong with it, where the equilibrium is because of too monopolistic, or there's not enough competitors in there, or there's antitrust, there's only one supplier, and they're making money hand over fist, but it's not good for society. Then they're either gonna charge a tax or charge a tariff, which is a tax, or set a ceiling or floor, which is another kind of tax. All those interventions leave something behind. The one with the ceilings and the floor, they're going to ask lots of questions about. So, what is the area here that is, a dead weight loss? or where are you leaving something behind the tablet and all that, or on the table and all that other stuff. So it is definitely an equilibrium problem, and you can definitely use the rule that it's got to be below here, and what's above there doesn't matter from the standpoint of figuring out where the new price and quantity are, but they may have grayed out an area up here or
Yeah.
up here that you do need to know. It's not that that's unimportant, but it's just called something different. It's what did you leave behind below this, or what did you leave behind above that? And there's just certain names for them. But we'll see that in a couple other problems. They don't get that complex of doing the algebra of that.
Yeah.